across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I will be your genial host all the way until 10 o'clock. Stand by for 3 top quality hours of news, views and dazzling debate. Get on the show. Get on the phone and call me on 03444991000 or WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's 03444991000. It is Wednesday, June the 4th. Here's what's coming up. 2 tiers migrant crisis fiasco as Labour try to claim the number of small boats crossing the channel is purely down to the weather. Guess what? It's not. Figures for last year revealed that the spectre of the Rwanda scheme kept the numbers significantly lower than they are during this current summer of discontent. Another ludicrous lie by our undear leader, who seems to me to be allergic to the truth, to telling the truth. He's just a liar, a liar, a liar. It's extraordinary. 03444991000. Meanwhile, Tory grandee James Cleverly says that the way forward is net zero greenery. He seems to think the economy can still grow while weighed down by eco claptrap as millions flock to reform and Nigel Farage's pledge to axe net zero madness altogether. Is this the Conservatives committing political suicide? 03444991000. Also tonight, new research forecasts that within 40 years, white Brits will be the minority of the UK's soaring population. What will that mean for this troubled country? 03444991000. Plus, the humiliation of the BBC, shamed for its inaccurate Hamas propaganda reporting by barnstorming White House Press Secretary Caroline Levitt. Also, I will ask why our jails are full of pampered prisoners, and I'll question the mad mollycoddling of Britain's most dangerous inmates. Also, yet another lie from liar Starmer, as it is revealed that his promise of the winter fuel allowance U-turn was all smoke and mirrors. It's not happening. I knew it wouldn't. I said so at the time. You know, he makes this statement, oh, we're going to have a look at it, we're going to change it. No, we've listened. They're not doing a damn thing. Pensioners will still freeze next winter. This Gorman's government will, in other words, continue its mission to freeze our old folk. Isn't that special? 03444991000. Finally, the scandal of Prince Harry's sky-high legal bills as he waged his futile fight to get armed police protection when in the UK. Exactly how much will this entitled little man's stubborn vanity cost British taxpayers? 03444991000. And after new Reform MP Sarah Poshin's debut question brought the House of Commons to a hushed silence when she asked the stunned Prime Minister to ban the burqa, I'll host a passionate debate on that very issue. More than 20 nations around the world, including France, Austria and Denmark, do not allow the Muslim face cover for women. Is it time for Britain to follow suit? 03444991000. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Wednesday night together. And for the first hour, it is my honour to welcome to the show my regular Wednesday guest, Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Hello, Isabel.
Good evening. Can I be a bit naughty?
Yes, you can.
Jump the gun and ask genuine question. What do you think about the burqa thing? I know you're going to talk about it properly later, but just super quickly.
I think we should ban it. I think we should ban it because I just think it's demeaning to women. I just don't think it is commensurate with the 21st century. I think it's medieval. That said, I do understand the argument. You know, who am I or any government to tell a woman what to wear? but covering the face like that, I don't like it. I don't like the reason for it. And in case anyone wants to call me an old racist or something, I mean, France bans it, Denmark bans it, Austria bans it, China bans it, Tunisia. There's quite a few Muslim countries ban it. So that's where I stand. What about you?
Yeah, I think what I regret is that we've come to the point where we feel the need to have this discussion. And the reason is that there are certain, in the UK, there are certain communities who aggressively refuse to integrate. You know, I like the idea of people being able to wear what they want within certain parameters of respecting everybody. And so I just think it's a shame that we're at that point, but I understand why we are. I mean, there are just certain people just do not want to be part of our society, it seems.
Yeah, and by the way, what I'm trying to do today, and I'm not the first to do this, but I think it is a very valid issue for us to discuss, and we need to discuss it. And when Sarah Poshin reforms new MP for Runcorn, it's a debut question in the House today, Prime Minister's question time. She asked the Prime Minister would he consider banning it. It was as if she said, I just said to Jeremy Coles, as if she said, would the Prime Minister consider killing every baby in the country?
I know.
You know, there was this sort of, oh my God, what has she said? Oh God, why? And Dan Hodges, for example, said, what a waste of her first question. I thought it was a brilliant first question.
On the contrary, yeah, really good debating point. But anyway, I just want to pinch your topic for later, so we'll have to...
That's all right. Well, let me be a bit naughty now, because I know this isn't really your area, but I want to ask the audience a question. Meghan Markle twerking with her baby bump with Prince Harry 4 years ago, just before the birth of Lilibet. Now, my question there is, you can watch this, she's posted this on Instagram today. So this is 4 years ago in the privacy of their private hospital there. And it's Harry and Meghan there twerking away. Look at them. Great dancing, Harry. What a guy. Now, my question to the audience, though, is we'll revisit this a little later, because I want to talk about Harry's sky-high legal bills and exactly how much this entitled little man's stubborn vanity is going to cost the taxpayer of this country, because we just found out how much his lawyers' bills have been over the past few years while he's battled to get armed police protection in this country. But that notwithstanding, what I want to ask the audience here, much more important question. Meghan there, is that a real baby bump, or has she strapped it on? Because
weird.
She's got form for strapping on baby bumps. So what do you think as you see it? I think...
there's something very wrong with that shape, in my view. I don't know. Look, I'm mesmerised, but I'm kind of... Do you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking, I'm glad the Queen is no longer with us, because, oh my Lord, how she would be shuddering at those images. It's so undignified. I don't know. Call me old-fashioned, but I'm finding that quite uncomfortable.
It is uncomfortable, but I don't think, because she's done this before for photos, I don't think that is a real baby bump. I think
way too big. It's way too big.
And sort of too low as well.
Yeah, it's like a metre out there. I mean, it looks the wrong shape.
I mean, where's she going to give birth there? Through her knees or something? I mean, that is too low. Anyway, so everybody, let me know, is that a real baby bump? Because I don't think it is, and I think Isabel agrees with me. So on that incredibly important issue, let's move on to something far less important, that is the migrant crisis. I'm joking. This is very important. Now, the Rwanda scheme, it seems, was cruelly abandoned. We know it was impetuously axed by this funny little man who's our Prime Minister on day one. It's just a gimmick. It's a gimmick. And he axed it on day one. Now, after that extraordinary day on Saturday just gone, when 1,195 migrants came across the channel, the fourth highest number in a single day of all time, the biggest number since 2022. Huge number of people came over. Labour has been trying to spin it that this is purely down to the weather. When you get a high number of migrants coming across the channel, it's just the weather, nothing else. They call good weather days red days. Now, corresponding red days last year, when high numbers came across, reveal that A, the high numbers were not necessarily dictated by good weather. On quite a few bad weather days, high numbers came across as well. But that the numbers were significantly lower last year after the Rwanda scheme began to look like a reality. After Parliament voted that strange thing, do you remember the Safety of Rwanda bill, where a bunch of MPs who've never been to Rwanda voted that it was safe? Ridiculous. But after that, the numbers, by comparison with this year, are significantly lower. So it does seem that even the spectre of the Rwanda scheme was lowering the numbers. And certainly Labour's contention that it's all down to the weather is gaslighting on an epic scale, and another outrageous lie by this lying government. Their propensity for lying is turning into a real problem, I think.
Well, I just think they made themselves look ridiculous with the weather comment. It's a bit like saying, you know, every year we know that it's summer and there's a summer season and there's a surge in the number of migrants. So that's not an excuse. You know, it's like, it's as with the NHS crisis every winter. It's utterly predictable. No one ever seems to be able to do anything about it. It's as ridiculous as saying, well, we've got an NHS crisis because it's cold. No, we've got a crisis because you haven't done the things that are required to stop there being a crisis, short of trying to change the weather, which we all know that you can't do. I just despair of this problem. You know, the Rwanda scheme, I didn't like it because I thought Rwanda's a very long way away. And there were other places that we could have done this, which were perhaps a little bit more practical. But I sure as hell thought it was better than nothing. You know, it was a bit of a deterrent. At the moment, we've got no deterrent at all. What we've got is, you know, metaphoric red carpet being rolled out. And sure enough, they come. You know, the French have made this point and they're actually right. I mean, I've got no particular holding no candle for the French. I think they've let us down very, very badly. And I think they're completely taking us for a ride. But they are right that if we stop rolling out the red carpet, maybe a few more of these so-called refugees might choose to stay in France instead.
You know what they're trying to spin today is that Labour have scored an incredible victory by persuading the French to now agree to intercept boats as much as 300 metres out from the start of the sea, from the beach, 300 metres. How about 21 miles? How about 12 miles?
Yeah.
What do you mean 300 metres? OK, it's better than the current system, which is as soon as the migrants get ankle deep in the water, the gendarmes go, we can't go there. So the gendarmes have had this system which bans them from literally entering the sea, even if it's a quarter of an inch deep, if the migrants are already in there. There they go. There they are, typically watching the migrants leave. So now it's supposed to be a major concession that the French have now said, all right, well, we'll try to stop the boats within 300 metres. At which point we should say, wait a second, 2 years and 3 months ago, we gave you £500 million, you know, £500 million to patrol your own beaches. Only this week have we discovered that in all that time, with our £500 million, you've had this ludicrous rule that you're not allowed to paddle even in the channel. Now, big deal, for the £500 million, you say, 300 metres, we'll get them for there. Never mind 300 metres. How about...
Who's measuring? Anyway, how are they going to measure this? I mean, are they sort of throwing, like taking a tape measure out there or something? I mean, I
want them stopping the boats to halfway across the channel, and then the British take over stopping the boats.
Yeah.
Not 300 metres. This is ridiculous. 500 million quid for this.
But they're not even doing the basics to prevent the boats getting on the water in the first place. I mean, we've seen this. They routinely drive past dinghies that are being prepared for departure when they could easily just hop out the patrol car and maybe make a hole in the dinghies so that they're not usable. Maybe that might be a good idea. It's very cheap and easy, isn't it? Just to puncture a dinghy. I mean, if there's no one in it, not a problem really. And frankly, if they're in shallow waters, it shouldn't be a problem to puncture it either if they're right within walking distance of going back. to the beach.
Yeah.
We get a bit more. I mean, I was about to say we've got to get a bit more imaginative about this, but it doesn't really require any imagination to say let's just make holes in these vessels. Cheap and easy.
Yeah, or turn the damn things round. I mean, it'd be quite easy for the French to do this. And they should be prepared to go. It's 21 miles across the channel. So, okay, in the interest of a sort of entente cordiale, you lot take 10.5 miles, we'll take the other 10.5. Not 300 metres. We gave you £500 million. It's ridiculous.
I mean, just to be clear, when I'm saying puncture the vessels, I'm not suggesting anyone should be.
No, while they're on it, I know what you mean.
I know, but I have to say that because otherwise, the usual suspects will say that I'm suggesting we should just make migrants sink. I'm not suggesting that. I'm saying that when vessels are quite clearly no one is in them, how about we just disable them? Here's the other thing though, Kev. I mean, that 500 million was supposed to pay, part of it was supposed to pay for a new detention centre. Have you heard anything about that detention centre lately? No one has. So I thought I was talking about this to Jeremy Kyle yesterday, thought I'd just check out on progress on the detention centre. Turns out that 2 years on, we're still miles out from having any detention centre because there's some planning row about it. And frankly, given the French attitude to work and general labour laws, I think it'd be very unlikely that this detention centre is going to be of any use to Keir Starmer.
Yeah. Whenever a politician or some sort of a self-proclaimed expert says something like, what we've got to do to solve this crisis is we've got to get round the table with the French. At that point I go, stop! Stop!
No
point, useless solution. They will never help us. They are bad actors in this. And proposing that getting round the table with the French to thrash this out and solve the migrant crisis is just ridiculous, because what they want to do is get rid of all of the migrants who are stuck in France and wave them goodbye on the enjoy Britain. They want to get rid of them. They will.
I completely get it, don't you? I mean, if I were them, I'd probably be thinking the same, especially if the Brits are foolish enough to actually pay them to do that. If it were us and there was a whole train of migrants coming trooping through Britain and it was possible just to fob them off on another country, I think we might be a bit tempted to do that, don't you?
Exactly right. Exactly. That's what they want to get rid of them. They want to get rid of them, and why wouldn't they? So the idea that France is ever going to come to some kind of agreement that they keep all of these migrants is for the birds. It's absolute nonsense. The French are not worth sitting around the table. So, folks, whenever you see some puffed up MP saying, what we've got to do is sit around the table with the French, just turn the telly off or the radio or whatever it is, because whatever that person's saying isn't worth a light. Let's move on. We'll go to break now. When we come back, talking about not being worth a light, we're going to talk about the Tories' approach to net zero. Apparently, they want to go all guns blazing at it. That's good, isn't it? That next. Stay tuned.
Look, I think Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves are amongst the most dishonest politicians we've had in our recent history. They just told lie after lie after lie. They said they weren't going to raise taxes. They did. They said they weren't going to take away the winter fuel allowance. They did. They said they were going to smash the boats, the gangs, and the gangs are smashing them. You're seeing absolutely astonishing numbers of people breaking into our country every day. Now they're saying it's all the weather. It's complete nonsense. They've lost control of our borders, as the Defence Secretary at least had the honesty to say on the Sunday media shows himself.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I'm still with Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Isabel, this one, I can barely believe this. Now, here's the Tories' lamentable story when it comes to net zero. Of course, they used to be fully signed up to it. That idiot Theresa May is the reason we're committed by law to getting to this impossible target by 2050, when the Tories thought, oh, we better get on this green bandwagon because, you know, that'll make us seem a little bit more trendy. So there we are. So Rishi Sunak, towards the end of his disastrous regime, did suddenly realise, oh my God, you know, we got Reform are doing very well saying we'll just cancel net zero. So he said, we're going to dial back on it. We're not going to restrict ourselves with too stringent targets or anything like that. That pretty much is Kemi Badenoch's position. You know, she's made so much of it. Oh, we're not going to be like the previous administrations. We're going to be less green. But she's still signed up to net zero. James Cleverly, former Home Secretary, Sir James Cleverly as he is now, as we speak, is making a speech to say that actually the Tories should go gangbusters for net zero and should fully sign up to it because to be negative about it is to be behind the corner of history and that they can fully embrace net zero while growing the economy. Now, given that millions, literally millions of Brits are flocking to reform because Nigel Farage and his gang have said, vote for us and we will axe this mad Miliband green claptrap altogether. We will get rid of net zero, this nonsense that is giving you the highest energy bills in the entire world, 5 times higher than America. We'll get rid of it. Now, you'll never guess, that turns out to be popular. Now, given that millions of people, Brits, are flocking to reform for that reason, what on earth is possessing someone like Cleverly to say, oh, no, let's keep the net zero bandwagon going? I mean, this is political suicide on their part, isn't it?
You sounded like Starmer then.
Yeah, actually, that's not a very good... That's a rubbish James Cleverly. He's got a very booming voice.
I think we just got so used to just imitating Starmer.
It's my generic politician impression.
Generic rubbish politician voice. So I think this shows the beginning of disintegration of Kemi Badenoch's leadership. I mean, James Cleverly is not in tune with the rhetoric that she has been putting out on net zero. There she is, trying to just tack a bit away from net zero for the very reasons that you just said, because it's clearly working quite well for Reform to be on that platform. And then you've got James Cleverly apparently standing up and saying the precise opposite. I think this has quite serious implications, oddly, for Robert Jenrick, the one politician from the Tory party that currently seems to be doing a really, really good job.
Absolutely.
What it suggests is if a figure as senior as James Cleverly, who has quite a following in the parliamentary party and the wider Tory party, is going to stand up and say that, it does tell you something about the kind of ideology within the Tory parliamentary party. And what does that mean for Jenrick? Can he actually take over as leader if there are people like James Cleverly who are standing on the opposite of what he believes in?
And I do not believe for a second that Robert Jenrick is committed to the net zero project. I think Robert Jenrick in private would totally agree with Nigel Farage and Reform that the only route to electoral success is by completely abandoning the net zero mania.
I suspect so, but Jenrick is playing a really clever game at the moment. You know, having lost out on the leadership, he's decided that he's going to be the real leader, and he's just staying within the bounds of what's not going to get him fired by Kemi, by not straying into all the subjects, which would be what a leader can do. So he is kind of sticking in his lane of, you know, the justice, legal stuff, and he's doing that really, really well. But it's fascinating to watch, you know, the disintegration of the Tories. I mean, not a day doesn't go past that I don't get some sheepish message from, you know, some Tory, diehard Tory that I've known for a long time saying, you know, I just wanted to emphasise my ties to a certain area, you know they're hinting that they want to be a candidate for Reform, you know, having never ever done anything other than vote Tory all their life. They're now seeing, actually, I'm not sure that this party's even going to exist in anything other than very minor form in the next few years.
Cleverly, absolutely, couldn't agree more. In his speech to something called the Conservative Environment Network, sounds dodgy for a kick-off, doesn't it? He is going to urge the Tories, or urge Badenoch, to push further, faster and smarter and set the pace internationally on green technology.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, listen to this. Let's not move forward tribe, that's what he calls people like you, me and Nigel Farage, is in a bidding war. We are apparently, Reform is the let's move backwards tribe. We are wrong. He said that drawing on Britain's proud history of innovation, we can lead once again, this time in the realm of green technology. James, you arrant fool. This will kill the Tories stone dead. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Well, you know what? There's a bit of me that's quite pleased, because I think the Tories have more than had their day. And if a number of them want to be really, really stupid and do the exact things that are going to hasten their demise, then I think an awful lot of voters who have still not forgiven them and will probably never forgive them for the monstrous betrayal over immigration and any number of other things over 14 years. I think a lot of voters will be quite glad to see them going further and further down into the abyss.
Absolutely right. And listening to what Cleverly's going to say tonight, I mean, that is extraordinary claptrap, absolute claptrap, the rubbish we used to hear during Theresa May's time. Now, you know, the Tories with this greenery, it's always like, oh, well, we're not going to be as extreme as Labour, but we're still going to do it. What is their problem? Why don't they understand that the majority of people in this country don't want them to do it? What is their problem?
Well, their problem is a lack of courage and not wanting to be, you know, sort of shunned at the dinner table when they're sitting around with their kind of, you know, London elite types that are completely wedded to this stuff still. And it does take courage to speak out against net zero, because you do get painted as some kind of dinosaur or climate change denier or many other smears, and you get ridiculed and you get denigrated for it. But actually now, I think public opinion is really changing on this. Why? Because people can recognise that when you look at the actual facts, there's basically not an awful lot that Britain can do to change the overall global temperature.
Nothing. We're at 1% of carbon emissions. We're responsible. Anything we do will make no difference whatsoever to the global situation. But I'll just, by way of parting from this topic, well, I'll read you some more of Cleverly's powerhouse keynote speech. Listen to this. The UK is advancing rapidly in renewable energy generation, clean transport and carbon capture. of carbon capture. We must push further, faster and smarter. And with that, the Tories went to bed and never woke up. Unbelievable.
Absolutely unbelievable. He is so wrong. He's so wrong. How can he not read the room? I don't get it. How can he not read the room? This whole net zero thing, as well as contributing to sky high energy bills, as you said, the most expensive in the world, it is actually risking desecrating our country, covering it with monstrous numbers of pylons and solar panels and all of that. Sacrificing one thing in the name of another. Our beautiful green countryside being all chopped up by this stuff.
Yeah, and this, cleverly alone, as you say, I think it highlights that the Tories are at war over pretty much every issue, but certainly this issue. But this is like something from ancient history. But it does indicate to me that the Tories are in even bigger trouble than we ever imagined. It's wheeling out this anachronistic nonsense that has been proved to be wildly unpopular with the people, but of course is a kind of hackneyed, cliched orthodoxy in Westminster. Proves to me that they're out of touch and they're lost and they're hopeless. I always quite like Cleverly, but this is absolutely moronic, absolutely tone-deaf politically, and it will be the death of them if they haven't died already. Next up, Isabel, we're going to talk about this very worrying research report that reveals or forecasts that within 40 years, white British people will make up the minority of the population in the UK. We'll talk about that after this break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, let's talk about this report, this forecast, very alarming, research by Professor Matt Goodwin at Buckingham University. He predicts that within 40 years, white British people will make up the minority of the population of this country. So at the moment, white British people are 73% of the population. He predicts that that will fall by 2050, so what is to 57%, and by 2063, so pretty much 40 years, slightly less than 40 years, will slip into a minority. And he goes on to say that possibly by the end of the century, it'll be 33.5%. Now, you and I have often discussed the ramifications of this ongoing cultural invasion. More and more foreigners being allowed into the country, both illegally and more significantly legally. In effect, for quite a few years, we've been letting in 1 million foreigners every year with legal visas. Some of them have left, but our population has been expanding, exploding, and not with white people, not with the indigenous population. It's been exploding with foreigners. So your thoughts on the fact that white British people will soon, in terms of history, will pretty damn soon make up the minority of the population of these islands. What do you think?
I think that it's a real head spinner. I think that there are profound implications, and unfortunately, raising these questions and even debating this issue and even pointing out that this is quite likely to happen is likely to trigger a chorus of accusations of racism. I'm so weary, by the way, of that being the only word that people can critique an argument with. It's just everything seems to prompt the cries of racism, whether it's the burqa argument, whatever it is. It's not really about racism. This is about culture and our history and who we are and what kind of country we are. And that is not to say that there aren't many brilliant and rich cultures and countries that have minorities of white people. But, we do have our own history. And I think people are already feeling that we and that is being eroded. I'm often in a tiny minority as a white person on the tube in London. I look around me, and in a carriage of 12 people, there might be 2 white people. And that is extraordinary. If you look at footage from the tube from 20 or 30 years ago, yeah, there's a good mix of people. But you've not got kind of, only 10 to 20% of the people in the average tube carriage being white. And I think it's a perfectly legitimate debate to have as to what that actually means. And it's way beyond the skin color. I mean, I don't care if someone's red, white, blue, whatever color they are. It is about values and culture and what's important and who we are.
Indeed, Matt Goodwin says that his research, and this is based on Office of National Statistics data, so it's valid research. He says that it raises, and I think this is basically the issue. He says that this research raises profound questions about the capacity of the UK state to both absorb and manage this scale of demographic change. That's what it's about. I mean, I think that, there are millions of British people who are not white, who are very British. But these migrants that are coming in, we are getting an increasing number of communities that it's not about colour of skin, it's about culture. We're getting an increasing number of communities that, they may have it's not the fact they don't have a white skin is not the point. The point is they live their own culture. They have nothing to do with British culture. That's the worry, that we have a constant influx coming in that is completely diluting traditional British culture. I'm not necessarily putting that out as a criticism, but I think we have to seriously, well, actually, I kind of am really, to be honest with you.
I am.
But yeah, I am too. I'm retracting that. I think it is something to worry about. But more importantly is we need a very urgent national debate about this.
I highly agree with that. I think there's a couple of other things. The first one is respect of incomers and newcomers for those who've been born in the UK or have made the UK their home for decades. And if those who are coming in and taking our hospitality showed how much they appreciated that and how much they respect the people who are already in the UK and are paying for that hospitality, I think that there would be a whole load less resentment and division in communities. And increasingly, we're seeing a real lack of that respect. We see it in the attitudes of those coming over on the boats now. There's not a kind of, thank goodness, relief, I'm so grateful to have got to Britain, to the safety. Why? Because it's become an industry. They expect to be able to get over. They expect to have the red carpet rolled out for them, and it's all a bit of a laugh on TikTok. Yeah. So there's that. And then there's a second thing, which is the desire to dominate our culture, the desire to actually be the dominant culture. And that is so wrong and is so likely to cause the worst and most corrosive kind of division in communities. It just isn't reasonable to come into someone else's country and say, actually, I think you all have to do it our way.
I'll tell you what we all ought to be thinking about, what our politicians, our government ought to be thinking about is, for example, my parents no longer with us. They went, within the last decade or so, 5 years or so ago. Now, these are a couple, the classic middle class, intelligent, both an intelligent couple. That they sat, I tell you what aged them was their confusion as they looked at what Britain was becoming. Yeah. They grew up in a different country and they couldn't understand what was happening to this nation. Now, there are millions of people of a certain age, like my parents, who look around them and say, what is going on here? And why are we allowing this to happen, do you think, Isabel?
We're allowing it to happen because there are an awful lot of vested interests in it happening, and also because of a kind of craven and cowardly apologist attitude for our past that seems to think that we have a responsibility to atone for colonialism by letting the world come to us. And it's so wrong-headed, and it will be the absolute end of Britain. I mean, I don't say that lightly. The Britain that we know is changing so rapidly. You see that with the tables of baby names, don't you? I mean, Mohammed.
Always the top. Mohammed every year is the top name, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, many people will argue, oh, well, it's changing for the better, and we can have that argument. I don't happen to agree, and it's not because I want to go back to a time when Britain only had white people and we didn't have any cosmopolitan part of our culture. But it shouldn't be a matter of guilt to say, actually, we have a heritage and we'd quite like to keep it. Many other countries have no problem whatsoever with that being their attitude. This is who we are. And, by the way, also, there's another really important thing here, which is national identity. Countries that don't have a clear shared identity and in which populations, whatever their colour, don't sign up to a common set of rules and values are countries that are likely to disintegrate. And I'm afraid that's exactly what we're seeing, not only in the UK, but in very, very graphic scenes in France and Germany.
Yeah. And I think we have a government right now, these socialists, they believe they don't like Britain, they don't like traditional white British culture, and they believe that to dilute that as much as possible is a good thing. They do think that the slow destruction of traditional white British culture is a good thing, and therefore our governors are the architects of our decline, if you ask me. I certainly think that this should become a major issue. This report is alarming. So let me ask the audience what do you think about that? This is a firm forecast that within 40 years white British people will become the minority in this country, and by the turn of the century, so way off, I know, that white British people will only represent a third of the population of this entire country. So 2/3 of this nation will not be white and will not be traditional British by the end of the century. What do you think about that, everybody? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Perhaps you think it's a good thing. Perhaps you have you think it's a bad thing. Perhaps you have ideas about how it should be stopped. I certainly think we should think about slowing down the process of our cultural dilution. I really do. So let me know what you think. No, 0344 499 1000. When we come back, Isabel, let's talk about the BBC shamed in the White House hilariously. We'll cover that next. Stay tuned.
We're in a propaganda tornado at the moment, coming from the other side, if I may say, call it that, which I think I should. And the reason is that Israel is close to winning. And the reason it's close to winning is that it's tackling the issue of aid. All of this propaganda is attracted to the issue of aid. And the reason is that until now, the UN has been bringing in the aid. Hamas, the UN is compromised by Hamas. Many of the UN, 1,200 of them, actually are members of Hamas or Islamic Jihad. Hamas takes the aid from the UN and then sells it.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. I got a memo for the BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, who had the temerity to stand up today and say, oh, new and imaginative ways of increasing the TV licence fee, maybe perhaps charging richer families more than poorer families, because we, the BBC, the state broadcaster, we need more money to avoid cuts. Well, here's my response to that, Tim Davie. Go to hell. Forget it. You are a disgrace, and your organisation is a disgrace. You have allowed it to fall into a pit of anti-Semitism. Your reporting of the Israel-Gaza conflict is a national scandal, a disgrace. And I'm not the only one saying that. This is Caroline Levitt, the White House press secretary, humiliating the BBC to the world's press yesterday. Let's have a look at this.
There are now reports that Israeli forces are firing on Palestinians trying to get aid from the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Up to 20 people, according to the Red Cross, have arrived to the hospital that they've set up with gunshot wounds, have died from them. Is this administration aware of these? And I mean, what is being done to address this situation?
The administration is aware of those reports, and we are currently looking into the veracity of them because, unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak. Unlike the BBC, who had multiple headlines. They wrote, Israeli tank kills 26, Israeli tank kills 21, Israeli gunfire kills 31, Red Cross says 21 people were killed in an aid incident, and then, oh wait, they had to correct and take down their entire story, saying we reviewed the footage and couldn't find any evidence of anything. Oh. Okay, so we're going to look into reports before we confirm them from this podium or before we take action, and I suggest that journalists who actually care about truth do the same to reduce the amount of misinformation that's going around the globe on this front.
Do you know, Isabel, how much of the world's media takes Hamas statistics about casualties and horror and all that? 95%. Only 5% take Israel's statistics. Now, what the BBC said about this horror, this disgrace to journalism, was, oh, we were just covering a running story. So they seem to think it's okay to take Hamas's propaganda claptrap, absolute lies, and report that. Oh, 51 dead. It's not quite 51. 31 dead. We've got new figures. 31. The Hamas now saying 30. Oh, no, it's 12. Hamas are now saying 12 dead. 12 dead. Oh, wait a minute. It's not anybody. No one's dead. They say that's justifiable because that is following a running news story. No, it is them taking lies from Hamas and reporting them as facts. To be humiliated like that in the White House by the brilliant Caroline Levitt is a serious low point for our state broadcaster, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, my goodness, she didn't half burn the BBC there, didn't she? I mean, she is quite something, that press secretary. She was not holding back. She clearly, it was kind of, here's one I prepared earlier, and had her list of BBC transgressions.
I love the bit, sorry to interrupt, I love the bit where she goes, oh, wait!
yeah. Just happens to have this in my back pocket. Yeah. But I mean, look, she could have produced an entire dossier of the BBC's offences on this front. But haven't you noticed something odd? You know, for all their rush to put out anything like that before checking it properly when it relates to the Israel-Gaza conflict, they're tremendously cautious to report on anything controversial in the UK. You know, the BBC's always the last to actually be breaking any stories of what's happening, and you'd never turn to them for the facts about what's going down on the streets of Britain. Exactly right. Now, Jeremy Bowen, the BBC's Middle Eastern editor, who is personally responsible for a lot of, shall we say, dubious reporting, rather anti-Israel in its bias. He gave an interview, and it was in a few of the Sunday papers, where he said, he pulled his own employers up and he said, look, when the way we report Donald Trump, we say that he twisted the facts, that he distorted the truth. And he said, we should stop saying that. And we, the BBC, should just say Donald Trump is lying. We should use the word liar, lies and lie. Pot and kettle occurs to me, Jeremy. He's saying, Donald Trump's a liar. So's the BBC. And I hope the BBC doesn't descend to that. The word lie is one that perhaps you and I can use, Kev, because this is a talk radio show and a talk, a show in which we can be a little bit more normal.
Provocative, yeah.
But when you've got, there's a reason why politicians in Parliament, in the UK Parliament, are not allowed to use that. They're not allowed to use the word liar in the chamber. They say, perhaps the honourable gentleman has misspoken because it is very, very strong terminology, and things quickly descend when you accuse people of lying in a formal setting. So when the BBC starts doing that, I think it really will be beginning to sign its own death warrant, if that hasn't already.
But what a pompous thing for Jeremy Bowen to say. about Donald Trump when he knows full well that the BBC is seriously in the dock about its reporting of the Gaza conflict, which, as I said earlier, is frankly a national scandal. Since day one, October the 7th, they have been so anti-Israel. It hurts, it really does. And they don't seem to be able to take the plank out of their own eye. They don't seem to be able to see that they are biased. And there's nothing more biased than a biased journalist who doesn't understand he's biased. I admit I have my prejudices, I am biased, you know, but the BBC, they think they're saintly, and they couldn't tell a lie. Well, they do on a regular basis.
Yeah. That's absolutely it. You know, they can't see it. They genuinely, because they are in an echo chamber and the BBC is stuffed full of people exactly like them, they're all like each other, then, you know, they just whatever their views are on these things are just reinforced by everybody around them. I don't know where this goes with the BBC. It's sort of increasingly depressing, isn't it, to have to discuss the BBC with such grim regularity. But here we are, and on they go, letting us all down.
What they'll be doing after Caroline Levitt's brilliant assault on their integrity, they'll be going, oh, well, it's the Trump administration, it's our enemy, you know, we report them accurately and now they're having a go at us. They will, you know, formulate some kind of excuse in their saintly minds. What they ought to do, and what they don't seem capable of doing, is to listen to people like us, to listen to Caroline Levitt, listen to the complaints, saying, well, hang on, so many people are saying that we are biased about Gaza, perhaps we should have a look at it. But what they do is the more we complain, the less they listen to us, because they are saintly, they are the BBC, and they are right.
Well, I mean, it was the same with Brexit. That was the other huge debate that really exposed the struggles that the BBC has with impartiality in certain areas. Now, they're pretty good at it in other regards, but when it came to Brexit, my goodness, that was a battle. You know, they really had to hold their noses as they were forced to invite the odd Brexiteer to take part in a panel, because they actually have a statutory duty to be impartial and things like that. But it was such a struggle for them ideologically. Yeah, we've got a problem. That we have a biased state broadcaster. It's almost like living in a North Korea or something. Isabel, fantastic to talk to you. We'll talk again tomorrow. That's Isabel Oakeshott, Talk's international editor. Now, when we come back, I'm going to be talking about the mad mollycoddling of Britain's worst prisoners, the special treatment that the most dangerous prisoners in this country get. It's a scandal. It's another disgrace. Stick around for that.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome to hour 2 of tonight's Political Asylum. 60 sizzling minutes until the next news. Now, in about half an hour, I'm going to be taking your calls. 03444991000. The big issue, is that a real baby bump that Meghan's got in that twerking video? Let me know what you think. No, seriously. You can let me know what you think, actually. But probably more seriously, the migrant crisis. Labour trying to claim it's just the weather. That's the only factor in the number of people come across. No, it's not. Turns out 42% less people, fewer people, were coming over this time last year or before. Then that's because of the spectre of the Rwanda scheme that never happened. People go, the Rwanda scheme was a disaster. How do you know? It didn't start. Now looks certain that even the spectre of it, the potential for it to happen, was discouraging migrants. 42% fewer this time last year than this year. It's not the weather, it's hopeless policies, Mr. Starmer. So that, and what about this report that fairly soon white British people will be the minority of this population. Within 40 years, white British people will constitute the minority of the British population. And that by the turn of the century, 2/3 of this country will not be white. What do you think about that? 03444991000. Me, I'm less concerned about the colour of people's skin than this cultural invasion, this cultural dilution of British culture. That's the problem. More and more of these towns, especially in the north, you know, they're like sort of Muslim towns. They're not like British towns. So that kind of thing. So let me know what you think about that. 03444991000. And are the Tories committing political suicide with their green claptrap? They're clinging to the net zero bandwagon. Kemi Badenoch saying, oh, we do want it, but we won't be that strict about it. James Cleverly now, Tory bigwig, Tory big beast, grandee, making a speech as we speak, saying we've got to go bigger, faster on the green stuff. Yeah, net zero, rah, rah, rah. Yeah, we can lead the world. Oh, God, shut up. Shut up. What do you think about that? Are they committing political suicide with that? Do you like the fact that net zero, the obsession with net zero, has given you, and for that matter me, the highest energy bills in the entire world, 5 times higher than America? Do you like net zero for that? Would you vote for a party that will continue that? 03444991000. Right. Let's get going with our next topic, and going to be joined for the next half an hour, really pleased about this, by former Conservative Government Advisor James Price. Hi, James.
Hello, my friend. How you doing?
I'm very good. Now, let's talk right away about what I've called the pampered prisoners of this country, what I would say is the mad mollycoddling of our worst jailbirds, our worst inmates. So, we have a story last weekend that Axel Rudakabana, you know, that fiend, that semi-human who killed those poor little girls in the Southport dance hall, he has gone to Belmarsh. About a few weeks ago, he attacked a prison officer with boiling water, seriously injuring that warden. He's still got full privileges to buy treats in the prison canteen. Apparently his favourites are Maltesers and cheese and onion crisps. So just as a gesture, why not take that away from him? You know, you've just poured boiling water all over a prison officer. In my world, you wouldn't have the privileges to buy those sweets and crisps in the first place. You're such a scumbag, but that's a different issue. But after doing that, basically nothing. He just carries on with the normal privileges of a normal prisoner. Also, we have a guy called Hasham Abedi. He's the brother of Salman Abedi, who was the Manchester Arena bomber. Killed 22 people, and he was a suicide bomber. Obviously he died, but Hasham Abedi was all part of it. He's doing life. It cost to us, by the way, to defend himself in his trial, legal aid, that's we paid for this, £354,015. £354,000, that's what we gave him for his legal defence, which wasn't very successful, unsurprisingly. He got life. We now learn that not so long ago he was granted £1,200, £1,200 by us, by the government, taxpayers' money, to pursue a complaint of religious discrimination in the jail that he is in. Subsequent to that, he kind of lost interest in that battle. So what he did is he went into the very special student-style wing where the Islamic extremists in his prison reside. It's literally like a student dorm. They've got kitchens, they've got TVs, they've got video games, and they've got the kitchen. This is where Hasham Abedi went into the kitchen, boiled up some water, put a load of sugar in it, and then attacked 3 prison officers, really seriously injuring them. I believe one of them at least was a woman, but all 3 of them very, very seriously injured. He's still sort of sitting on this £1,200 we gave him to launch a case against the prison for religious discrimination. When are we going to start treating these kinds of prisoners the way they should be treated? In my view, banged up in a cell, door locked, no windows, chuck them some food once a day, twice a day, and that's it. Why do we treat them in this mollycoddling way?
It's a very, very good question. I think that we have lost our minds to some extent on some of this. Now, I think that there is a place for rehabilitation of some prisoners, of most prisoners, in fact. I think that as a society, it's a good thing that people can pay their debt to society, can be punished and be deprived of their liberty for a while and able to perhaps learn new skills and to come out a better person, having been forced to reflect on the crimes that they did against their fellow man. I don't think that's going to happen in either of the cases that you mention, mate. I just think you mention their names and my skin crawls. You think about the mugshot of Ruda Cabana. You know, that is the face, I'm afraid to say, of pure evil. That person is never capable of coming out of prison because they will go on to commit the most heinous crimes again. We know they will. You know, it's hard even to see. It's just popped up on the line.
It's just ridiculous.
It's the face of evil, isn't it? And I just think we should have a serious conversation in this country in these sorts of extreme cases about the return of capital punishment. I do not see that that is a worse outcome than the alternative way that these people should be treated in order to protect prison guards and other inmates.
And how about this? Hey, Axel, so you really like Maltesers, do you? And you really like cheese and onion crisps. Well, here's the deal. You are never going to eat any Maltesers or cheese and onion crisps for the rest of your miserable life because we're not going to let you have them. See what I'm saying? That kind of treatment. How about that? How about actually punishing these people? Because this is what gets lost in the mix, to my mind, James, is this. You know, rehabilitation, sure, but in the case of these two, rehabilitation just isn't on the table, obviously. But generally, what people forget about prison, it isn't about, people say the primary function of prison is rehabilitation. No, it isn't. The primary function of prison is punishment. And more and more, it seems to me, we are forgetting that aspect of incarceration. We're not punishing Axel Ruda enough, quite clearly. This Habidi guy, we're clearly not punishing him enough. And this idea, I think they're dismantling this ludicrous system as we speak, that you take the Islamic extremists, and every prison has their quota, and you put them in a kind of their own dorm where they can watch telly, play video games, and cook up lethal cocktails of water and sugar. Where's that come from? What kind of an idea is that?
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? You're right. I think the one thing I would disagree with you is the idea that it's just about punishment. Of course, the other...
No, I'm not saying it's just about punishment. I'm saying that people forget that the primary function of jail is punishment. Rehabilitation, of course, lots of important other aspects of prison, but in the mix, you know what I'm saying, do-gooders in particular, they forget. We don't send people to prison. We're going to send you to prison to rehabilitate you. No, we're sending you to prison. We're removing your liberty to punish you.
Yeah, well, I think the joint primary point as well is to keep scumbags like this away from the rest of us, is to keep the rest of us safe so that we can live our lives and look after our families and go to work and run businesses and have fun hobbies and things like that and go to music concerts and not get blown up by that scumbag's brother and all the rest of it. And I think that right for us not to be affected by these people should be extended to prison officers. And as you say, some of these people have suffered horrific burns and attacks and will be traumatized for dealing with this, which is why, again, I think that they should not be allowed any access to anything, frankly. And again, I think there should be a conversation about whether it would not therefore be kinder perhaps in the long run, and even definitely cheaper perhaps for the taxpayer, and that our hard-earned money can go on more worthy causes, to have these people cease to be here at all. And I think you're definitely right. This idea that they're all allowed to hang out with one another and talk about, how they can rustle up more plots. I do slightly wonder whether, if they're so religiously devout, we shouldn't do our bit and send them on their way to their maker to be judged, because I have a funny feeling that they're not going to get the kind of rewards that they're expecting in the afterlife. It's going to be an awful lot more warm and unpleasant than that.
And one would hope that they head downwards, not upwards. But what this DB guy? Why on earth was he given £1,200 of government of taxpayers' money to pursue a case of religious discrimination? Well, why when someone like that, basically a mass murderer, a dreadful terrorist, turns round and says, I'm being religiously discriminated against and I want some money and a lawyer to fight this case. Why don't we basically say, tell you what, Hasham, piss off? Why don't we try that?
And that sounds like a jolly good idea. And I think that this idea that we should be worrying about these things, if you didn't want to have your religious rights curtailed, then maybe you shouldn't, as you say, have been complicit in the mass murder of people going and committing the crime of hanging out at a wonderful music concert. Robert Jenrick, the Shadow Justice Secretary for the Conservative Party, who must be getting a bit of backache from carrying the whole Conservative Party and is doing excellent work at the moment. He did a great video, really scary, reporting as well that in some cases, in some of these extremist Islamist wings, that they've stopped taking the drug sniffer dogs around them because there have been complaints that dogs are haram and forbidden because some silly rot that their saliva cancels prayers or something like that. Again, if you didn't want to be around dogs, don't commit crimes that get you sent to prison that require sniffer dogs. Don't make a complaint about it now. Don't like the time, don't do the crime. Very, very simple stuff.
It's a sort of cultural, it's absolutely, it's a kind of a cultural problem, I think, that we have, and I think it's increasing, is, the first thing certain, the do-gooding section of our community think about with someone like Axel Rudakabana or Hasham Abili is their rights. Their rights when they're in prison, their rights. Well, as far as I'm concerned, and I'm serious about this, we should take their rights and shove them where the sun don't shine. That's what we should do. We should just tell them, you killed 22 people, you killed 3 kids in a dance hall. Don't you talk to us about your rights. You don't have any. Well, how about that?
Yeah, I think you're right. And look, this is how far back we've gone in some of this nonsense about this. Back in 2005-06, it was Tony Blair who, no one's idea of a radical, rabid right-wing conservative by any stretch, would talk about people's right not to get blown up, and that would trump some of these things. I think you're completely right, Kevin. I think that one of the big problems has been the growth of the ECHR, and I think that it's, this is this foreign court in Strasbourg. It's not necessarily the writing of the convention itself, which was written by British lawyers after the Second World War to try and help Nazi Germany and other European countries who'd had their legal system shattered get back on their feet. It's the fact that this court has taken matters into its own hands and think that it can do whatever it wants. And one of the most infamous bits of it is talking about people's right to a family life. And that right trumps our right not to deport criminals, not to deport foreign paedophile rapists who are here illegally, not to be able to deport. And, you know, people know all these stories. The bloke who didn't like foreign chicken nuggets, or the woman whose husband wouldn't like the spicy food if deported back to the Caribbean, and all these ridiculous stories, all the way up to the rights of these scumbags triumphing the right of all of the rest of us. And as you say, we need to get our heads screwed on about this. In order to get rights, you also have some responsibilities, and especially amongst those, not blowing people up and stabbing people. I think that we should have a serious conversation about what rights you lose when you commit some of these atrocities, just like you say.
And don't forget, James, there's an industry around these people. Human rights lawyers have turned this into an industry. So,
like Keir Starmer's Attorney General, by the way.
Yeah.
Again, absolutely ridiculous. But you must just be very unlucky to get this with it. They talk about the cab rank rule, the idea that, you know, you have to take the first case you get. Not true, by the way. Again, as Robert Jenrick pointed out on this guy, Lord Hermer, and it just so happens that this guy Hermer, and if you're lucky enough not to have heard of him, he's Starmer's mate who has represented Jerry Adams and a load of Al-Qaeda terrorists and a load of the other worst scumbags in existence, that Starmer made the Attorney General and put him in the House of Lords. And he's the guy who personally signed off the political conviction of Lucy Connolly. He's the person who signed off on giving away the Chagos Islands. If I don't know what a traitor is, that's him. And I think we should have a conversation about his right and his propriety in being the Attorney General of this great country.
Unbelievable. That was one of Starmer's first acts to get his little chum, Richard Hermer, ennobled up into the House of Lords so he could be a Lord. Therefore, he's can become the Attorney General, the most senior lawyer in this country, and he's not up to the job, and he hates this country. He hates it. You know, he thinks we're a colonial, imperial disgrace, and it's his job to dismantle the remnants of British imperialism. I mean, what is he, like 14 years old or something? It's pathetic, isn't it? It really is pathetic. These people, they just suffer from arrested development. But listen, James, we're going to go to break now. When we come back, we're going to talk about the winter fuel allowance, which, of course, there was never going to be any U-turn on it. That was just another announcement by our lying Prime Minister. Liar, 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 pants on fire Starmer. He just lies. And he said about U-turn, well, certainly, we've listened. The winter fuel allowance will be reviewed. And I said at the time, nothing's going to happen here. We will still face the grim prospect of pensioners freezing to death next winter. So I'm also going to be talking to James, and we're going to be joined by a pensioner who's got a lot to say about this. So stick around for that. Stay tuned.
40 years, white British people will be a minority in their own country. That is not good. When did the people vote for that? I mean, that's a very serious question. They never voted for this. And the fact that we treat this as if it is completely normal is absurd. If I would show you a number that says Saudi Arabia will be majority Christian in 40 years, your question would be, why is that? What happened? What did the Saudis do? How could that take place? And in Britain, we say, well, this is then these weird BBC documentaries where they say, well, somehow Britain has always been a nation of colored people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, you may remember last week that the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, stood up in the Commons and said that we've listened. This was in response to the crescendo of calls for the government to abandon its cruel axing of the winter fuel allowance. That was the 300 quid that the government used to give to every pensioner to help them pay for fuel to keep themselves warm through the cold winter months. Now, the response to that from many people in the Labour Party has been furious, and around the country. I mean, you know, what kind of a government wants to freeze pensioners to death? Now, last week, the Prime Minister, and it was all hailed as a U-turn by the government, astonishing U-turn. The winter fuel allowance is back. I said at the time, there's no way this is the case. What it actually was some kind of very, very wishy-washy announcement about, like, they're means testing it now. So you have to, if you're a pensioner and you want to get some kind of allowance, you have to fill in about 250 questions, massive form. You're means tested as to whether or not you. So they used to give it no questions asked to every single pensioner. Now there's a strict means test, and I said as soon as he made that, all the press, U-turn, dramatic U-turn. Here's what I had to say last week. Didn't cost the government all that much money. It was handy. They axed it. Now he says, oh, I'm bringing it. He's not. They're going to mean test it. It's not bringing back the winter fuel allowance. It's just another Keir Starmer snake oil salesman announcement. Put it quite well, I think, there. Yes, James. So today, Labour have confirmed that indeed there will be no U-turn. All that's happened is the means test that they brought in, which, as I say, apparently involves answering about 250 questions, will be slightly less strict. So the point is, a U-turn has to involve this: the restoring of the payment of £300 to every single old age pensioner in this country, like it used to be. That is a U-turn. If he doesn't do that, they've axed it. It's the same. So more weasel words from this Prime Minister, you know, who more and more, you know, that thing, you can tell when Keir Starmer's lying, his lips move. I mean, he's just a liar. The winter fuel allowance is not back, and today they confirmed that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just an absolute shambles from start to finish with all of this. Let's take it from the top. The Labour Party won the election by default. So nobody was particularly very popular with them, and already Starmer and his cronies are incredibly unpopular, and deservedly so. They came in without any ideas whatsoever because they believed their own BS and thinking that, well, we're not the Tories, so we're the good guys and it'll be fine, discovering that isn't actually the case at all. What do they then do? They turn to the civil servants who've wanted to do this policy change for a long time, and there is logic to it. Spending is out of control and has been out of control ever since the end of the Second World War, and we do need to tighten our belts and be much more sensible and much more serious about our fiscal outlook. We borrow more and more and more, and the debt interest, that is to say, the money that we pay just to keep having all of that debt, not even paying it down, but the debt interest gets higher every year. And so it takes up a bigger chunk of our overall budget. We spend a lot more on debt interest payments than we do on the entirety of our defence as the world gets more dangerous. But it does seem very silly that this was the one thing they chose to cut that would upset and scare so many people when they didn't have a way to properly means test who would actually need it in place. Then there's the political shambles of them saying, oh, we're going to get rid of it, we're not going to get rid of it. Some ministers saying, well, if we don't cut this winter fuel payment, then Britain's going to go broke all on its own. The whole thing is just a shambles. And if they can't get this one reasonably straightforward policy idea and suggestion right, do we have any confidence they're going to fix the debt? Do we have any confidence they're going to get our military rearmed again, to get the economy going again, to face up to Russia and China? Any of these sensible things? I think not.
I think that this gaslighting of the public by this government is turning into a real crisis. They are governing by announcement. They just make all these announcements. We're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. Well, yeah, big deal. What about something now? The pensions minister, Rachel from Accounts, said more people will get winter fuel payment this winter. Torsten Bell, the magnificently named Torsten Bell. What kind of a name is that? A couple of parents. What should we call our son? What about Torsten? Yeah, that's a good idea. Torsten Bell, anyway. He said, and I quote, there is no prospect... where is it here? There was no prospect of returning to a universal winter fuel payment in England and Wales. So that's it. Game over. It's not happening. It's another lie from this Prime Minister, and there will be pensioners who freeze to death as a result of it this winter. And by the way, Rachel from Accounts says that any adjustments they make won't happen until what she calls the autumn budget, which I believe is October. So that's a little bit late, isn't it, to sort things out for the winter. Now, stay where you are, James, because we're going to be joined now by Angela. She's a pensioner who phoned us some time ago, and I remember she told us this horrendous story about her best friend, and we'll get her thoughts on what she thinks about the way this government is going about the winter fuel allowance. So welcome to the show, Angela.
Oh, hello, good evening.
Now, tell us what happened to your friend.
Well, I found earlier on in the year she could not afford to put her heating on because the £300 thing had gone. And she just went into the bathroom to have she was so cold, the house was so cold, and she must have been just having a wash in the bathroom or something, and she just died, and she was frozen. The house was freezing, the house was cold, and I visit her every day, so I know she didn't put the heating on.
And you found her, Angela. You found her frozen to death. You found her frozen to death, didn't you?
Frozen to bloody death, honest to God. And the ambulance kept saying to me, oh, try and get her up, I said, she's dead. She's frozen solid. How do you wake somebody up that's frozen solid? Anyway, it's not about that.
I think it is. I think it is, Angela. It's serious. What was your friend's name, Angela?
My friend's name was Betty.
So, and whereabouts in the country do you and Betty...
In North Wales. North Wales.
So let's just recap on that. Betty had found out that she wasn't going to get the £300 winter fuel allowance that she relied on to keep her home warm and to heat herself through the cold months. So you went round, as you did every day, and you found her literally frozen to death. Unbelievable.
Yes. Unbelievable, it is. And Starmer said about the last government, before he got in, that Tories would say that there's 4,000 people going to die of the cold this winter. Well, he's beat that target by 4,950.
What do you think about what's happened in the last week, Angela, where under intense pressure the Prime Minister stood up in the House of Commons last week and sort of basically said there's going to be a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. A lot of people assumed that would mean you'd all get your £300 again. Well, it turns out it's a lie. You're not going to get that. What do you think about that?
What I'm going to do is invest in a dinghy boat and go over to France and come back on a small boat and get three meals a day in a hotel. And I think all the other pensioners should join me. And if we die on the way, we're drowning anyway in the country. We might as well drown in the bloody sea, but if we get a bonus, we'll come back and we'll get a three-course meal, a free hotel, free phones, free televisions, free everything.
Well, that's where the money's going, Andrew, and it's not going on you, and it's certainly not going on Betty.
No, it certainly isn't. That bloody Rachel from accounts needs to be bloody ashamed of herself. I don't know how she sleeps at night, to be quite honest.
Well, don't exclude Starmer from that condemnation. This is your socialist government at work. You know what it is, Angela? They don't like old people because old people don't tend to vote Labour. But when you tell your story about Betty, I mean, that is such a tragedy.
Well, to be quite honest with you, I voted Labour all my life. Well, not again. Never again. Never, ever again will I do that. Well, I won't vote Tories either because they let us down as well.
Well, are you going to vote Reform?
I'm going to vote Reform.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are
the rest of the country should as well.
I think that the way things are going, Angela, I think they may well do that.
But do they actually think we're so stupid that they put up the minimum wage, then they put up the poll tax, then they put up the water bill, then they put up the gas bill? That won't even cover what they put up.
I think you just...
What is wrong with these people? Are they stupid or do they think we're stupid?
You've hit the nail on the head. They do think we're stupid. They really do.
They really do.
Yeah. Listen...
They just don't listen. They're not listening to the people that, I'm in my 70s and I've worked very hard for this country and I've paid my national insurance and I've paid my dues.
Yeah.
And for them to live in a hotel with free phones, do this, be that... And I'm not saying that they're all that bad. I'm not saying that.
No, I know what you're saying. It's a strange priority that they spend this fortune on foreigners who come across the channel illegally, and yet they let people like your friend Betty freeze to death. I mean, it's extraordinary. Angela, listen, really good to talk to you. I've got to move on now, but we'll keep in touch with you. Thank you very much. That's Angela there from North Wales. So there you go, James. She went round to see her friend Betty. Her friend Betty had literally frozen to death.
It's just a heartbreaking human tragedy, and we'll hold Betty and Angela as well for having to find her in my prayers tonight. I think that it shows how much power government can have to try and save lives, and therefore how responsible we need to be with that power and responsible we need to be with the money. I don't think that it's entirely right to put this at the feet of the winter fuel payments alone. If we're in a situation where a £300 payout is the only difference between life and death for somebody, then something structurally has gone really wrong. And what is the big structural thing that's gone really wrong? The fact that we have the most expensive electricity, the most expensive energy in the whole of the developed world. If we had energy costs that were the cost of the American energy costs, then Betty wouldn't have died either. And nor would lots of other people, and our economy would be going a lot better, and that would mean our hospitals would be better funded, our schools better funded, and the rest of it. And so the people that you should be angry at as well is Ed Miliband, who is pursuing these mad, dangerous, suicidal net zero policies that is not going to change anything in the environment. What's going to change that is going to be exciting new technologies that are going to give us clean power, small modular nuclear reactors and all sorts of other exciting technologies that we should be pushing for, but not the fact that we have the most expensive electricity in the world, and it's all self-inflicted. That, I think, dwarfs the issue of the winter fuel payment or anything else. And if we had, as I say, American-style energy pricing from fracking and all sorts of other things like that, then poor Betty would be alive and could be listening to this show right now.
I'm just going to leave you with one thought. Last Friday, we had on this show the heartbroken son of a farmer called John Charlesworth. They'd had in their farm in Yorkshire. That had been in the family since the 1950s, generation to generation to generation. So John Charlesworth heard about the incoming inheritance tax raid by the Labour government, and because he was so keen, anxious to be able to pass on the farm without this tax burden to his son, to the rest of his family, as they'd always done, he committed suicide. He killed himself. This was recorded in the coroner's court. His son, Jonathan, came on last week and told the story of how he'd walked in to find his dad dead, having committed suicide. It was an extraordinary story. So what I'm saying here is, we think about the story of Betty, think about the story of John Charlesworth, and what these socialists, these people in their ivory towers, Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, should think about, should start to understand, is their ruthless, cruel policies have consequences. And if people are dying because of your policies, if people are committing suicide because of your policies, you should have a look at yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Although, of course, these are also the same people who are allowing this assisted suicide legislation to go through as well, that will make it much easier for all these people who are worried to go and kill themselves as well. And I think that the ineluctable conclusion, for me certainly, and the driving force, the reason that I've been in politics for a long time and want to continue this fight, is that socialism, as you say exactly rightly, Kevin, doesn't care about people's lives, doesn't care about people dying. Socialism and communism across the 20th century responsible for the deaths of more people than any other evil, murderous ideology, 100 million people plus, because of these cruel and inhumane and ridiculous policies that never work in whatever shape or form they're in. Never, ever elect these socialists ever again. Never let them forget what they're doing to our country.
I think we should be all right on that score, the way this government's going, but unfortunately we've got to wait 4 years before we vote them out. James, fantastic to talk to you as always. Thank you so much. That's James Price, former Tory government advisor. Now, let's go to break. When we come back, we'll have time for a couple of calls. So 0344 499 1000. Call in about anything you like. Let's talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
In a little while, we're going to be joined by former Cabinet Minister Norman Baker. We want to talk about Prince Harry's legal bill. You know, twerking Harry, might play that video again. His legal bills have gone up by £100,000, and this, of course, was to pay for his long-running battle with the British government as he demanded police protection, armed police protection, whenever he visited this country. He lost the case. I think he did 2 appeals. He kept being told this is a forlorn hope, but he kept going on, stubborn, vain, entitled. You know what he's like. The point is how much of he's going to be landed. He's going to end up with it. It's costing £1.5 million, maybe £2 million. It's likely he's going to be ordered to reimburse the British public to some extent, but it's been mooted at only 90%. My view would be, why do we even have to pay 10% of his legal bills? You know, why? In a stupid case in the first place, was never going to win. Why should we foot the bill? He should pay for every red cent of that long-running legal saga. Don't you think? 03444991000. Before we get to that, let's talk to a new caller, Luke in Manchester. Yeah, Luke, so we were talking earlier about this report that within 40 years, white British people will make up the minority of this country. Where you live in Manchester, you're not at all surprised by this?
Not at all. Just wanted to say, Kevin, I started listening to the talk radio a week ago, and I was drawn in by the common sense values that you guys kind of share.
Welcome, mate. Welcome, Luke.
I've not stopped listening, but obviously Isabella, I think, was the guest about 45 minutes ago, addressed the current issues perfectly, and I couldn't agree more. I've never heard anyone, portray it that way, and it was absolutely amazing. I'm a 38-year-old British father. And I'm genuinely concerned, myself and partner are concerned about our son's, future, if I'm honest. I cannot express enough my absolute disgust in the current Labour government and more specifically Keir Starmer and the way that I just cannot understand, these people that are put in charge of our country have no business acronym whatsoever. You look at the USA, and I'm genuinely jealous.
I think we all are, Luke. Do you, where you live in Manchester, there's a lot of areas up around there that I don't know what the word is, have become very Islamified. More and more Muslims living there. Whole areas and towns where people don't speak British. The culture is Muslim rather than British. Is that the story where you live?
It is, and race and religion, culture, race and religion irrelevant. I don't have a problem with people coming into this country, providing they're prepared to adopt our culture. We are a British culture, and the way that I think about it is, if I was to go to their country, how would I be treated? Would my culture be considered?
I think, Luke, to go back to what Isabel was saying, and I agree with her, the amount of people coming to live in this country is another issue that deserves intense discussion. Yeah. But people coming to live here that are prepared to accept our culture and live in the British way, I have less an issue with them than people who come to live here and want to take over our culture. That's what Isabel was saying, that they want to subjugate, to make British culture subordinate to theirs. And that, I think we should seriously object to.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more. You walk through the streets of London now, and there's stands and people preaching regarding Sharia law and stuff like that, and it just I cannot get my head around it. I genuinely cannot get my head around it.
I've got quite a few messages here, Luke, from listeners and viewers, texts and that saying, "Oh, Britain's on course to become Europe's first Muslim country." I mean, that's a Well, I know where they're coming from, put it that way. I'm worried about all this, aren't you?
Yeah, I am, and I understand, and, you know, I have, you know, people that I know and, you know, liaise with on a regular basis who are Muslim, but the westernized Muslims who accommodate our culture and our way of living, which, you know, it isn't a problem. A lot of them are very successful guys. You know, they work in good environments. They contribute to the country. The people that I have a problem with is the people who come to our country, like my next door neighbour, who doesn't lift a finger all day. She just breeds children and buys high-value Mercedes. I don't know how she can possibly afford a high-value Mercedes when she doesn't work.
For a child benefits, by the sound of it.
Oh, the government will just be gifting it. But I think the problem lies with Keir Starmer, that he can literally make this place so attractive to people who want to come to this country. I cannot get my head around it.
No, me neither, Luke. Hey, listen, Luke, I've got to move on, but welcome to the Talk community. Thanks for a great call. Keep in touch. Call me again. Well done, Luke, in Manchester there. Let's go to break. When we come back, as I say, we'll be talking about Harry's legal bills. I think they're a bit of a scandal, to be honest with you. That next. Stay tuned.
European Union and India, right? Now, it turns out at least one of those deals with the United States is not a deal.
Yeah.
So why would they put out a video saying this is what we've done?
Exactly, and it's becoming a systemic problem because it's whether it's on trade deals and the economy to try and say that they've got a deal when they clearly haven't, whether it's about saying they're stopping the boats and the numbers are coming down, whether those numbers are actually backdated, maybe that they've inherited from a previous government, or whether it's about NHS waiting times, whether it's about investment in public, whatever it is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, let's talk about Prince Harry. You will have noted his long-running legal saga as he sued his father's government, the British government, demanding that he receives armed police protection whenever he visits this country. It went on for ages. He lost, then he appealed. and he lost the appeal, and then he appealed again. After the first appeal, the judge said, look, mate, he didn't actually use those terms. He said, you're never going to win this case. I advise that you abandon it. But he didn't. He's a stubborn, entitled little fool. So he carried on. Now, this is going to cost him a fortune, about £1.5 million at least. Turns out that the last appeal cost another £100,000, 102,000 to be precise. Hitherto, his legal bill stood at, this is the Home Office legal bill, stood at £656,000. And then he went, about a month ago, into court again, another £100,000. So the Home Office's legal bill is £250,000, £750,000. Now, a judge at one point in this long-running saga said they expected Harry to obviously foot our bill, the British public bill, 90%. Well, why not 100%? This is a fatuous lawsuit. We shouldn't be paying for it. Let's speak to former government minister and the author of "And What Do You Do? What the Royal Family Don't Want You to Know," which was a great book about the royal family's money. They don't want you to know about their money, trust me. So a warm welcome to Norman Baker. Thanks for joining us, Norman.
Hello, Kevin.
Look. This guy, if he wants to go and waste £1.5 million, which is basically what it was, it could be more, fine. In fact, on the basis that we get full reimbursement for the Home Office's legal costs, having to foot the bill for this ludicrous, fatuous pursuit of armed police protection by a man who lives in California, fine. But one of the judges halfway through this thought that perhaps Harry should pay 90% of our bill. I say 100%. This is ludicrous to suggest anything else, isn't it?
Well, I think probably 100% is right, but I mean, these are matters for judges to rule on. What I would say is I find it extraordinary that when he's been told he's going to comprehensively lose, that was a phrase used, he's like a dog with a bone who won't let go of this. And his case isn't very strong. He says he doesn't feel safe in this country, can't bring his children to this country. He may not know this, but last year in the UK, there were 22 gun murders in the UK. In America, there were 41,000 gun incidents. There were 503 mass shootings. So I just say to him, in which country are you more likely to be in danger, the US or the UK?
Well, do you remember, Norman, when he was last in court, when he turned up unexpectedly for his latest appeal, which he once again comprehensively lost, rather humiliatingly. There he is sitting there, oh, it's so dangerous when I come here, Britain, so I can't bring how sad, I won't be able to bring my family here, won't be able to show my children my home country because it's so unsafe. And then he got on a plane and went to Ukraine.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's complete nonsense, isn't it? I mean, nothing he says stacks up. He says he may be at risk of being attacked by a terrorist because of his service in the British Army. Well, that may or may not be true. But if he is a target for terrorists, they can target him in the US as much as they can in the UK.
Of course they can. Of course they can. Now, one of the aspects of this long-running saga was he said, do you remember after he lost the last time, he went back to California via Ukraine, went back to California and then sat down and gave that rather petulant interview in which he revealed his dad doesn't talk to him anymore, and he's the victim of a sort of shadowy conspiracy between his father and shady figures in the establishment and the government who want him dead and all this kind of stuff. He sat down and gave that interview, and in the middle of the interview he said, I wish, clearly this is an establishment stitch-up. He said, I wish someone had told me along the way that I had no chance of winning. Well, I'll tell you who told him that. It was the second appeal. Appeal, the judge at the end of it said, I'm paraphrasing, he said, listen, mate, this is a lost cause. You will never, ever win this case. So when he says, nobody told me, that's just not true.
Well, it's not true, and I think that was a very unfortunate interview he gave. Look, I'm no fan of the royal family, Kevin, as you know, but there's no question about our judges being independent. They're independent. They reach their own judicial decisions without any interference from the government or the royal family or anyone else. That's one of the strengths of this country about the system, the legal system in this country. So, you know, when he says that, it's unfortunate. It's casting aspersions on this country and the legal system. The other thing that was unfortunate, in my view, was saying, I don't know how long my father will last. I mean, that's a pretty tasteless thing to say, to be honest with you.
It really, really was. That was alongside revealing that Charles doesn't talk to him anymore, and who can blame him for that? It really was a strange saga. This entitled little man who just, as you said, like a dog with a bone, he would not drop it. He kept being told it's not going to succeed. And the final judge said, and this is where I think Harry has difficulties trying to understand the way the real world works. The judge said, you know, I understand your emotion, I understand your passion about that, but you saying it's just not fair, please can I have armed protection, does not amount to a legal argument. It's not a legal argument. So the legal case, the defence, the state of Britain's defence, never changed from day one. And it was ratified by judge after judge after judge. Harry didn't seem to understand that was always going to stick.
I kind of wonder to what extent he's being driven by Meghan for this. Who I think has a dislike for this country and has instilled that probably in Harry and created images in his own mind about his own country. And I think that's part of it. You know, when he says she's not feeling safe over here, she doesn't want to come over here, does she? And I think she's trying to make him feel the same way. You know, it's a bit of a John and Yoko syndrome between the two of those two.
That's a good analogy. I think you're exactly right. I've always said, right from the time of Megxit, when they first sort of skedaddled across the Atlantic to Canada and then California, I think it was 2020, was it? About 5 years ago now. Right from then, I said Meghan, will never set foot in this country again. I think she despises Britain. She hated her time here, and she ain't coming back.
No, she's not. And I feel, in a way, I feel quite sorry for Harry because he's now on his own out there. He's in an alien environment. She's very happy. She feels very much at home. And he's lost everything. He's lost his family. He's lost his country. And he's stuck out there, you know, in an alien environment. And I don't think he'll ever recover from that.
And he pursued a very unwise legal case that's going to cost him the best part of £2 million. He's an idiot. Norman, good to talk to you. Thank you very much. That's Norman Baker, former government minister, but he wrote a very interesting book called What the Royal Family Don't Want You to Know. It's all about their finances. Now, before we go to break, I'm going to return to this really important issue. Let's play that twerking video again and ask the question, right, is that a real baby bump? It's not, is it? Is it? That's not what pregnant baby bumps look like. That is a strap-on baby bump. Look at it. I mean, it doesn't look like she's going to be giving birth to a baby. It looks like she's going to be giving birth to a whole race of babies, about 3,000 of them or something, through her knees. It's so low. That is a strap-on, isn't it? That's my view. What do you think? 03444991000. And by the way, Harry, don't enter Strictly Come Dancing anytime soon. Look at those two. What a couple of fools, honestly. Oh dear, they're funny though, aren't they? So, is that a real baby bump or is that a strap-on? Let me know what you think. 0344 499 1000. Now, when we come back, to be serious for just a brief second, we're going to be discussing what Sarah Poshin, the new Reform UK MP, brought up in Parliament. Should we ban the burqa? We will discuss that. We'll have a proper discussion and debate straight after the news, so stay where you are.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about 20-25 minutes, we'll be taking your calls, 03444991000. Anything you like. You know what we've been talking about. Some big stories around some big issues. So get on the phone, give me a call. It's good to talk on Talk. Also, you could send a message if you prefer, or you can WhatsApp, voice note me on the same number, 03444991000, and I promise to play your message out. Now, interesting times today in the House of Commons. Sarah Poshin, you may remember, she is Parliament's newest MP. She is a Reform UK MP. She won that dramatic by-election in Runcorn by 6 votes. This was her debut question. Take it away, Sarah.
Given the Prime Minister's desire to strengthen strategic alignment with our European neighbours, will he, in the interests of public safety, follow the lead of France, Denmark, Belgium and others and ban the burqa?
Hear, hear. Oh. Prime Minister.
Can I welcome her to her place? But I'm not going to follow her down that line. But now she is here and safely in her place, perhaps she could tell her new party leader that his latest plan to bet £80 billion of unfunded tax cuts, there's no idea how he's going to pay for it, is Liz Truss all...
Shut up. I mean, how about answering the question? How about answering the question? That's outrageous. This is Prime Minister's question time. A representative of the people stands up and asks a question. Should we ban the burqa? You know, the way the House of Commons reacted was as if she said, should we kill every baby? Oh, my God, what did she say? What did she say? Oh, my God. Then the Prime Minister's question time, his answer is, I'm not going to follow you down that line. Well, you're supposed to answer the questions. And I think it's a very valid question. It's certainly a debate that I think we should have. As Sarah Poshin quite rightly said, well, in fact, there are about 22 countries around the world, including Muslim countries, Tunisia, for example, that ban the burqa. Many European countries, Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Denmark, France, Luxembourg, Holland, Switzerland, parts of Italy, Spain. If you want to know, Africa, Cameroon, Chad, Congo, Gabon, and Tunisia, as I just said. In Asia, China, Kyrgyzstan, Sri Lanka, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. So there's a lot of countries have banned the burqa. It is not an outlandish topic, something we should talk about in this country. Let's debate it. First of all, sort of pro-ban. She is in favour of a ban on the burqa. Is Jess Gill. She's a columnist and a founder of the Women's Safety Initiative. Welcome, Jess. And against the ban is Grace Badamosi. She's a political commentator. So welcome to both of you. Thank you for joining us. Well, first of all, Jess, tell us why you would agree with a ban.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on, Kev. It's a real pleasure to be here. I think ultimately the burqa represents oppression, and I don't just mean oppression in this like liberal, modern woke feminist idea we have today, but I mean actual oppression. If you're wearing something like a burqa, you're no longer almost seen as a person because you can't, communicate to people. It hinders learning, for example, in a class. If you're a teacher and you're trying to communicate to a student wearing a burqa, how are you meant to do that adequately? When you can't, see their facial expressions, you can't, see if they're struggling with a question. It hinders them in all sorts of social life. And the reason why, they're made to wear a burqa, it's not because of modesty. There are ways to demonstrate modesty without having to completely cover up. It is about oppression. It's about silencing women and making sure that they're seen as objects.
Grace, sounds like good points to me. Why would you oppose a ban, or why do you want the current status quo to continue, that for the burqa to be allowed, for women to be allowed to sort of cover up in this way? Why do you support that?
Firstly, as well, thank you, Kevin, for having me on. I think it's important to understand that this debate isn't about whether we personally like the burqa. It's about whether the British government should be criminalising an item of clothing worn by a small number of women as a matter of religious conscience. A burqa ban, is unnecessary. It's completely against Britain's liberal democratic values, and it's actually completely counterproductive to the aims that people set out. So I am firmly against it. I think in the UK we have freedom of religion, we have the idea of bodily autonomy, and people should have the right to choose what they want to do. Particularly religious freedom is fundamental to our identity in Britain. So I think things like a burqa ban is just legislating against a problem that doesn't really exist. About 0.05% of British Muslims wear a burqa. That's not 0.05% of British people, that's 0.05% of British Muslims. This is a Reform MP, so about 20% of their representation in Parliament, stating something that is not a problem for the majority of people.
Why would you think a Muslim country like Tunisia would ban the burqa then?
I think ultimately Tunisia can do whatever they want, but I know
but why would a Muslim country ban the burqa?
Again, I'm not concerned with what Tunisia does. I'm concerned with...
Try to answer that, though.
But I'm saying that in the UK, we have set a very clear precedent of people having the freedom of religion. And if people choose to wear the burqa, I don't see why we should be setting up a system of control. I think in the UK, we've set up a system where it's like the state does not interfere in people's lives. So I don't see why the burqa ban would be in line with the policies that we have in the UK. Tunisia can do whatever they like, but in the UK, I would like to keep that precedent of allowing people to do what they want.
By the way, Tunisia is by far and away and not the only Muslim country that bans the burqa. What do you say, we'll come back to you in just a little while, Jess, what do you say to Jess's point that it demeans women, it makes women a second-class citizen? I don't think, I really have a lot of sympathy with the idea governments shouldn't be telling women or anyone what to wear. But I think that the objections to the burqa are not merely that. The objection is cultural. We have a society that does not approve of essentially treating women as second-class citizens, as the kind of people who need to be covered up, and that it's cultural. There are, of course, also security fears, but I think that's a sort of periphery issue. It's cultural, that in this country we do not like signs, demonstrative signs of treating women as second-class citizens.
I mean, I take Jess's earlier point that you can think the burqa ban is oppressive, but again, I go back to my earlier point that this isn't a question of whether we personally like the burqa. This is about the government telling people what to do. You cannot claim to liberate women by telling them what they can and cannot wear. This isn't sort of feminism. This isn't a liberal democracy. This is simply coercion by another name, essentially. I don't buy the idea that this is against sort of Britain's values, because as I mentioned, Britain's values are a liberal democracy, so actually imposing a ban would be going against our cultural values.
Well, Jess, sometimes though a government does have to take a stand, and I would suggest that this is cultural, that the people who want to ban on the burqa feel it is un-British, it's not commensurate with our freedoms, our principles of equality of the sexes, and that the burqa demotes women very much to second-class citizen. I mean, personally, I'm trying to remain very neutral about this, but I kind of cringe when I see these women with the really serious ones walking down the road. You think, what on earth is going on here? Your thoughts, Jess?
Yeah, I think it absolutely is a symbol of regression in terms of where we're heading as a country, the fact that women can't go out and show their face. At the end of the day, I completely understand and I'm sympathetic towards the argument of freedom, but at the same time, these women don't have freedom. You talk about saying, you know, let women choose what to wear. These women don't have a choice of what to wear. I very much doubt it is their choice to be fully covered up, especially, I know Britain isn't the hottest of climates, but recently, like, I would hate to be in a situation where I'd have to be fully covered up like that. You know, they don't have a choice like this. They don't have a choice because they're enforced on it by their community, by their family a lot of the time. And I think if you actually look at these women, you know, they want the help, but unfortunately they don't have a voice. And part of the reason why they don't have a voice is because they're silenced, because you can't really communicate to someone when all you can see is just that. Like, it's impossible. How do you even go about that?
And it can be worse than that. It can be the total sort of cover-up thing. And they just look through a mesh. And to go back to you, Grace, the governments do have laws about apparel. I mean, for example, all governments around the world do require you to wear clothes. So, you are banned from walking around the country nude. So there is a law to do with clothes. You also can't walk around with a T-shirt with a Nazi swastika on it and so on and so forth. There are lots of laws about what you wear. So the government does have a role in apparel. So why would you say it is none of the government's business what women wear?
Well, I think firstly on Jess's point, talking about the women who choose to wear the burqa are forced to, I think that is quite a broad generalisation of women who choose to wear the burqa. I think you will find that there are many women who choose to. Again, this isn't about your personal feelings on it, but understanding that there are people who choose to. And even for the people who are coerced into wearing the burqa, they are perhaps forced by their communities. If they are not able to wear the burqa in public, that then means they are just not in public. They completely disappear from public life. So it's, again, absolutely counterproductive to the aim you're trying to set out. You're saying that you want to give these women an opportunity to actually take part in having jobs and being part of a community, but if they
It'd be a nice idea, wouldn't it?
But I'm saying, but exactly, that is a great idea.
Or are we against that?
If you take away their ability to be in public, that means they completely disagree. So I'm going back to my point that this isn't liberating women the way that you think it is. And in terms of what your point about the government actually being able to make these laws, I again go back to point that this isn't an issue for anyone. This petition came up in 2013. It got 13,000 signatures or whatever, and didn't even make it to the point of being discussed in Parliament, because this is an absolute complete non-issue. This is a Reform MP who's just got into Parliament.
Never mind. No, it's not. It doesn't matter about a reform. Doesn't matter about a Reform MP. Yeah. This is an important issue that we should all be discussing. And Jess, the point, what Grace was just saying there, if you're a Muslim woman and the people around you require you to wear that full thing, that kind of sinister looking thing, you're excluded from normal life, aren't you? You can't get a job, you can't work in an office. It's a real repression, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think ultimately as well, it's just a symptom of the main issue here, which is the fact that we've had so much mass immigration from countries which simply do not respect women. I mean, look at the rise of female genital mutilation, for example. And again, a lot of this comes from countries which, have this abhorrent view of women, treat them like property, say that they can't go outside in public without a man, without covering up. And it's just a symptom of that. And I think as we continue to go down this route, and if something like this isn't confronted, I think we're going to continue like that.
I agree. Well, let's talk, if we can, Grace, about a rather more mundane aspect of all of this, and that is the security issue. That people with the full cover on, you can't see their face. For all you know, they might be a bloke. It's been used before for nefarious purposes. What about that? I mean, you can't see their face. There's so many points in the day where seeing a face is quite important. How about that? What don't you think we should think about that?
Again, firstly, you're right that is sort of a peripheral issue. That's not the main reason people...
But it's worth discussing.
But you're right, it is worth discussing. And I would say to that we already have policies in place for these areas that require verifying identity when needed. We have these policies in place at airports, at banks, polling stations, whatever. And we also have the necessary legislation to put these in place. A blanket ban is not required in order to enforce security. This is, again, the role of a government imposing its will on citizens. And I would ask, once you allow this, where does this go? So we start banning hijabs, we start banning people...
Well, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the point being that all of these headgears, particularly the full burqa, what is that? What are they for? I'll tell you what they're for. Allegedly, they are to curtail the base instincts of men who will be driven sexually wild by being able to see a woman's face. That is medieval claptrap, isn't it? So why don't we get rid of these headgears?
Ultimately, again, I go back to my point at the very
Well,
beginning.
what do you think? It is medieval claptrap, isn't it?
You don't have to like the burqa to
I didn't say it's not about liking it. It's about taking it's about taking. Look. What this is about? This is about a suggestion that the government of this country takes the position that we culturally in Britain do not like the burqa, and we're going to burn it.
Again, I go back to my previous point. There is no security issue for the women that you say you're trying to liberate.
But what about us not liking the burqa? Why?
Again,
it is actually, Grace. It is actually about whether or not we like it. That's it. Is actually at the heart of the issue.
Okay, so the government decides that people can't wear crosses. The government decides that people can't wear kippas. By introducing this precedent, you don't understand the role that you're giving government in terms of completely curtailing religious freedom. I think that is an awful precedent to be setting in a country like the UK.
So what do you feel about the fact that we're banned from wearing swastikas? What do you feel about that?
Obviously, that is a symbol of hate. I wouldn't say that that's the same as a hijab.
So you're okay in principle with the government having laws about apparel?
Well, I'm okay with
Well, you obviously are. You just said you are.
That's quite different to religious.
No, it's not. It's not great. It's not, is it, Jess?
Cross and a swastika on the same level at all, actually.
Well, I think you can, Jess.
I just think the burqa is fundamentally anti-British as well, and whenever I see it, I just think, why are we importing this foreign culture, which again is very oppressive to women? I don't think that point should be underestimated. And even if a woman chooses to, adopt such dressing, again, what does that say about herself? And I don't think if I was to wear something like that, I wouldn't have the best esteem. I don't think I could represent myself properly. I don't think I could have autonomy. And I think that's just an awful shame. And I think just out of principle, it's sad to go into my local town centre and just to see all these women in burqas. And I just think, for one, it's a shame for them because, I would like to see their faces and communicate to them and, speak to them and engage with them as members of society and members of my community, but I can't because all I can see is their eyes, if that. And that's a common issue in a lot of town centres. But also as well, what is this foreign culture doing in Britain, in these towns of Britain? It's an absolute shame.
And to reiterate my point, Jess, respect to Grace's viewpoint, and I do understand, the kind of argument, do we really want a government telling women what they can and cannot wear? But I think it does go beyond that. And it is really, Grace keeps saying it's not about whether or not we like the burqa. It is precisely about whether or not we like the burqa, and many people, like yourself, Jess, don't. And the government in other countries has taken a position, we as a nation do not like this and we're going to ban it. That's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for once we need to realise we shouldn't be ashamed to enforce our cultures, our values, and I think it is fundamentally British to be against something like that. Grace talks about liberalism, and I think a part of engaging in a liberal democracy is being able to be an active member in that, if that's the kind of system you want. And I think wearing the burqa, you can't engage in that. And I think for once, we want to talk about what it means to be British, and we have all these cultures coming over here and inserting what their culture means, and I think there's a lot of value, in these cultures. I don't want to hate on these cultures, but they're not British, and I don't think, that should be a rising thing in Britain.
Let me ask you this, Grace. Your argument is, one of freedom of choice. Women should be able to wear whatever they choose, whether or not we personally like their choice of apparel, their choice of the burqa. If every Muslim woman decided, I don't want to wear this anymore, and all the Muslim blokes go, that's fine by us. So suddenly we have a situation where no Muslim women are wearing the burqa. Would you personally like that? Would you prefer that?
I don't see why I wouldn't. I go back to my.
So you would prefer that? You would prefer that?
I'm not saying I would. I prefer a situation where women are given the ability to choose what.
Yeah.
They
so
want.
if they all chose.
Or not a
yeah. But you personally, if they all chose and they were allowed to ditch the burqa, not wear anything, but wear just, you can see all their faces. They wear normal clothes. If that happened, would you personally like that?
if that happened, I would be happy because that means that women are given the opportunity to make their own choice. That's the argument I go back to. Ultimately, the argument that Jess is making is ignoring the voices, the actual women that are being affected. You're assuming their position. You're assuming
I'm not assuming their position
and
at all.
It's completely not evidence-based at all.
I'll tell you one thing, Grace and Jess. A lot more women who have to wear the burqa hate doing it than we are informed about. It is not a popular thing about among Muslim women. There's always this argument, oh, Muslim women, they all want to do this, you know. It's not true, is it, Jess?
Yeah, evidently it isn't. I genuinely don't think it is. And again, like, I would ask Grace if she's spoke to many of these women, but again, I very much doubt that they've had an opportunity to speak out against this. Again, it's hard to say that, you know, I'm not speaking for these women when, again, they don't have a voice. And I think that's the issue. How do you engage with somebody who's fully covered up, who you can't even see their face? It is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And I think it kind of removes their humanity, which is just such a shame, because I think these women deserve to be seen. I think, you know, if feminism is going to be about something, it should be about making these women visible. And I think ultimately, you know, maybe for a few of them it is their choice, I don't know. But at the end of the day, what it represents, what it means to them as a person, I think it is awful. It's silencing them. It's meaning that they're less of a human. It means that they're less understood. It means that, you know, they're more likely to face oppression because they can't represent themselves. And, you know, no one can see their face. So, you know, no one can relate to them. And I think that's just such an awful shame. And I think by removing the burqa, well, for one, if it does lead to these women not being seen in society, for one, like, I think that would be more of an outward sign of abuse. And I think social services, I would like to think, would be able to capture that. And so it would show that Britain isn't taking a stand for this. But also, too, like, I think, you know, ultimately, who is leading the campaign in favour of the burqa? I really doubt it is also women wearing the burqa. You know, they don't seem to actually talk about this, and I wonder why.
I think it's Grace, actually. Now, Grace, serious, that's just a joke. So you may have noticed I'm sort of more on Jess's side than yours, Grace, but you've fought a very powerful argument. So I'm going to give you the last word. What would you like to say?
I think, firstly, Jess, I do share your same one of women being given the right to be in public and take part in society. I share that. But ultimately, this isn't a debate about clothing. This is a debate about the kind of society we want to live in, one where the state can decide what religious symbols are allowed, what clothing people can wear. And I quite frankly think that in a country like Britain, where we pride ourselves on being a liberal democracy, we should not be implementing laws that restrict that. I think we do not defend liberal values by abandoning them. So
I really want to fight back against that, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to. So listen, you two, thank you so much. That was really good stuff. Thank you. That was Grace Badamosi arguing against a ban on the burqa, and Jess Gill arguing for a ban on the burqa. You may have kind of discerned that I'm kind of more of Jess Gill's viewpoint. I do think we have to think about this garment. Is it British? Is it something we like? You know, does it signify the subjugation of women, making them second-class citizens? I think it does do that, and therefore, you know, Grace kept saying, "Oh, well, it's not about whether or not we like the burqa." It's exactly about that. And the countries that have banned it because they don't like it. So should we follow suit? What do you think? 03444 99 1000. Let's go to break. Your calls when we come back.
was some local resentment about this.
There was a bit of local resentment. I mean, everybody there hoped that she would be found alive and well, but I actually had been to Praia da Luz prior to Maddie going missing on holiday.
Right.
And when I went there then, it was this bustling, incredibly touristy, full of English families with young children. When I went back, understandably, it was just after this little girl had gone missing, but it was peak holiday time, the beaches were deserted, the restaurants were empty.
Wow.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Our switchboard's gone mad about burqas. Should we ban them? What do you think? 03444991000. This is a sad text from Lorraine. Listen to this. She says, "Hi Kev. My Muslim neighbours have a lovely little girl, but she grew older. I now have no idea what she looks like. Her brother escorts her everywhere. Last week in the heat, I saw them leave home. She had on a full burqa, socks, gloves, vest and sandals. This practice should be banned for sure." I mean, that is sad, isn't it? Lovely little girl, and suddenly it's the cover-up years. Here's another one kind of similar. This is Julian in Oxford. Kev, I was having lunch with an Egyptian friend in Cairo in his house, and I wanted to thank his mum in the kitchen for the food. As I approached the kitchen, she shut the door and was trying to cover her face. This is the subjugation of women that goes on. This is what worries me about it. So let me know what you think. 03444991000. Let's go to Angie in Plymouth. Hi, Angie.
Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very good. What would you want to talk about the burqa?
Yes,
where do you stand?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because although I live in Plymouth...
Oh, Angie, it's you, isn't it? Sorry.
It's me.
How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm
How's Oliver? How's Oliver? Is he okay?
He's doing really well, thank you, yes.
All right, give him my best. Let's talk about the burqa.
He's now got a picture of you on his bedroom wall, by the way.
He needs to get out a bit more. But tell him thanks very much and give him my best. What do you want to say about the burqa, Angie?
Yeah, well, obviously, I worked in London for the last 8 years of my career, and I've got many, as a Christian, I do have many Muslim friends. I just think it is dreadful. I just, what I feel is, it goes back to what Julia was saying this morning or yesterday about culture. It's about if you live here, you need to embrace the way we live, the way we dress, etc., etc. And I just think it's sort of like it's oppression of women.
That's what worries me about it. I mean, people say, Angie, people say, what right have we got to impose our cultural requirements on Islam, on the Muslim people who live in this country? And I got a lot of.
They choose to live here.
Yeah, but this is about our values, and that's why France, that's why various other Western countries, various other European countries, and quite a few Muslim countries have just said no. This is wrong.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say once again, Kevin, thank you so much for supporting women's rights and actually our country's sort of culture. And as I've said to you before, I'm very proud of being British, and I think one of the things that I love about this country is that we do welcome everybody, and we are very we do accept everybody, but people also at the same time have to respect our values and our culture.
I agree, and that's why we've got to think about the burqa. I don't think it is commensurate with our values. I think it is a symbol of turning women into second-class citizens. I think if it's the full cover-up, it kind of extracts them from normal life. It just seems all kind of wrong to me. And if other countries can ban it with no real consequences, we should think about it, I think. Angie, got to move on, though. All the best to you and, of course, Oliver and the rest of your family. Thank you for ringing. Let's play. I've got lots of WhatsApp voice notes. This is Pete on the migrant boats.
Hi, Kev. Pete from Croydon. I wouldn't be surprised if the illegal migrant gang leaders knew someone in the French police, because they know exactly what to do and the limits they can go to, so they don't get stopped. So they're always one step ahead. Also, Mike Graham had Alp Mehmet, the chairman of Migration Watch, on his show earlier, and he said with the predicted 50,000 illegal migrants coming here on boats this year, then since 2018, 200,000 would have illegally crossed the channel to the UK. A quick Google search says there's about 165,000 police in England, Wales and Scotland, and 75,000 in the army, so that's 240,000. Do the maths, Kev. In another year at this rate, the illegal migrants will outnumber all our police and army put together.
It's a thought, isn't it? Very good point, Pete. Excellent WhatsApp voice note. Thank you for that. Let's quickly play Robbie. This is on detention centres, the idea that somehow or other we're going to set up detention centres for our migrants. Take it away, Robbie.
I'd just like to... I'm not going to give you any ideas now, so just hold up. But can you imagine if you built detention centres in, say, Holyhead or Liverpool and shipped all the migrants coming into Dover over to there and then turned a blind eye and not bother getting your feet wet to stop them from coming over to the Republic in their tens of thousands in little dinghies? Europe would go ballistic with the UK. So would Ireland, of course. But they don't seem to be doing a thing about France just letting them do it willy-nilly, you know? So I think what you should do is build detention centres there, replicas of the French ones, and just when they get over, they know they're going to get the same treatment, only probably worse weather. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, Robbie. I mean, I take your point, but the way I see it, they're like detention centres. Just don't let them come here. Turn them round. Deport them as soon as they arrive because they've broken our laws. We need to get tough. We need to show resolve. If we don't do this, if we don't leave the ECHR so we can make our own decisions about our migrants, or these people, these foreigners who come across the channel illegally, if we don't leave the ECHR so we can make our own decisions, and if we don't then make tough decisions like, you don't get into this country, that dinghy isn't getting into Dover or Folkestone, it's going back to France. If we don't do this, this is going to get worse and worse and worse. And it is, isn't it? Right now, you can see it. It's escalating day by day by day. This year, thanks to our ludicrous government, thanks to Keir Starmer's complete failure to tackle this rising crisis, we've got 42% more migrants coming across the channel than this time last year. Simple as that, and that's only going to get worse. Let's take another call. Let's go to Ian in Cornwall. Wants to talk about net zero. What would you like to say, Ian?
Oh, good evening, Kevin. Thanks for taking the call. The point about net zero is that it'll never work because it's not based on proper science. It's based on
agreed. It's nonsense, isn't it? It's not. People aren't even exactly sure what it is. And what was it? I don't know how many years ago it was that when that foolish woman Theresa May committed this country legally to reaching net zero by 2050. Fairly soon after Parliament voted that in, oh yeah, we've got to save the planet, everybody said, well, what exactly is net zero? How do we get there? It's a nonsense.
Well, I mean, net zero, if you take it to its literal conclusion, the planet is already net zero. There are no carbon molecules leaving the planet other than the odd satellite, which doesn't return to Earth. And there are no carbon molecules landing on the planet apart from the odd meteorite, which might contain carbon. So the planet is already net zero. What they've done is they've tried to twist the greenhouse gas, or so-called greenhouse gas, of carbon dioxide, and they've enlarged that to call it carbon in general. So you
carbon emissions. You see, they've made a villain of something called carbon emissions. That's going to kill us all, apparently.
Carbon dioxide is a life-giving gas.
I know. If we don't, we need carbon emissions, don't we?
so whenever anyone comes on the radio or the TV and says, yeah, but the carbon dioxide, all the greenhouse gases, they trap the heat in the atmosphere. There is no mechanism for that to happen, which is why I say it's based on junk science. If only people would actually maybe ask the question, so exactly how does a radiatively active, non-condensing trace gas in the atmosphere trap heat? I mean, if it did, every double glazing manufacturer would be putting carbon dioxide in between the glass panes, and we'd have no heat loss. It'd be brilliant. But I'd like to see the argument got back to basic science, not the science. The science is a political soundbite, but science. Ask an objective physicist or an astrophysicist exactly how is it that a carbon dioxide molecule can significantly heat the planet.
Yeah. Well, also on a more mundane level, Ian, here's the deal. Everybody has bought into that. Mankind is ruining the planet. It's all our fault. And if we stop causing carbon emissions, if we stop pollution, we'll save the planet. We've nearly ruined it, but if we stop our carbon emissions net zero, then we'll save the planet. Well, that is a consensus. It's not a fact, and in fact there's a huge number of scientists, admittedly the minority, but not an insignificant number, who believe that mankind is having no effect on climate change whatsoever. So we are going down an unscientific path to hell in a handcart, I reckon.
But it's a political path. It's not,
of course it is. Yeah, they're exactly right.
It's a religiously driven political path.
Exactly right.
I've got two words for you, George Orwell. That's why...
I thought you were going to say something else then.
No. It's 1984.
Yeah.
It's about manipulation of society.
Yeah, and it's about language, yeah.
I mean, if you remember what George Orwell said was, he who controls the present controls the future. He who controls the past controls the present. So what they're doing is they're filling our children's and our grandchildren's mind with utter scientific gibberish without anybody calling them out on that.
It's become a worrying religion. You're exactly right. Ian, I'd like to talk to you longer. Please call me again, but I'm going to have to move on because I've got other calls. But really good to talk to you. Thank you, mate. Ian in Cornwall. Before we go to break, let's play quickly another WhatsApp voice note. This is, how annoying was Keir Starmer in Prime Minister's questions time today? Not answering any questions. At one point, my old friend Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, actually made a joke about it. He said to because the baying idiots, so the MPs were all shouting and screaming, and Lindsay Hoyle says, well, quiet, order. Even though the Prime Minister's not answering the questions, let's listen to what he has to say. Sums it up. But anyway, here's Scott on this issue.
Evening, Kev. Yeah, just a little question regarding the question from, what's her name, Sarah, I believe, the new politician for reform. The trouble is with Starmer, he can't answer difficult questions. He can't handle the difficult questions. All he does is just fob you off with his lawyer background, avoid the issue, avoid the question. He's so weak. He's weak, pathetic, useless government. Starmer is an absolute clown, a joke. The man needs to go. He can't go quick enough for me. Cheers, Kev.
Scott there, speaking for the nation. Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Let's go to break, and when we come back, more of your calls, more of your messages.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. We're taking your calls at the moment. I'm trying to plough through all of our WhatsApp voice notes because I always promise I will play them all out. So let's do another one. This is Andy on the burqa.
Hi Kev, Andy here from Stockport. I just look at your programme now about the burqa. Can you imagine walking around Saudi Arabia with a bikini top on? What happened there?
There's Andy with his TV or radio or something on in the background, but he's made a good point. Someone else has mentioned this. There is a kind of cultural element to this. How would it be if a woman, a white Western woman, went to Dubai, or probably not Dubai, Saudi Arabia or something, and walked around in a bikini? How would that go down? It wouldn't go down at all well. So if you're saying culturally you should be allowed to pursue your own culture, well, it doesn't necessarily work, does it? As I said, Grace kept making the point, it's not about whether or not you like the burqa. I think that's exactly what it's about. Do we like this thing? Do we like covering up women's faces? Do we like this symbol of them being a second-class citizen? And then there are the security aspects. So that is the question, isn't it? Do we like the burqa? Let me know. 03444991000. Very important text here from WhatsApp text from Sharon. It's talking about Meghan's baby bump. Looks fake to me. Regarding the baby bump, that doesn't look real. It does look like some sort of strap-on. If it's not real, then what is she doing in a hospital room, giving the surrogate mother moral support? I don't know about that. I think maybe where I would see this is that she's had the baby and wants to recreate the joy of pregnancy for some reason for this twerking dance. But that does not look like a baby bump. It's too low, it's too big, it's too odd shaped. But anyway, that's the big issue of the night. Let's go to Mark in Lincolnshire. Hi, Mark.
Hi there, Kev, mate. You all right?
I'm good.
Good. Yeah, it was just about the British being, the minority in 40 years.
Yeah.
And just referencing back to your call, because I've been hearing this all day on Talk. When you were talking to Isabel about this, and the both of you do the usual thing, which I fully understand, the race element of it. Oh, they're not racist, and all this kind of stuff. Which is, like I say, that's fine and fair enough. However, you have to, with a culture, and you can take the UK out of it, British culture out of it, you can talk about any country's culture. It's completely and utterly reliant on the ethnic indigenous people of that country, because they're the people who created that culture. They're the people who will espouse it the most because it is their culture. Now, the argument to me is, or the way I see this, you can take anybody who you might class as non-Indigenous, and you can even include people like Ben Habib, Rafe Hale-Mankou, people like that, people who you and I would see as just as British as you and I. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
However, the difference is, and why culture is so important in all of this, and the ethnicity really, is because anybody that's not Indigenous chooses to espouse and live by British culture. People who are native to the land don't choose it. It's just them.
It's in them. But that said, Mark, this white Brit element of this argument, I think it does bear some analysis. There are lots of people in this country who are British as you and me, who do not have white skin. But they are very much a part of British culture. They grew up, they were born here, they went to school here. They are very much a part of British culture. So being white is not a requirement of being a pure British person, in my view.
Which is what I said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I said, Kev. Because you could. That's what, when I reference...
it's being born here, isn't it? That's a really good point, Mark. I agree with you.
Well, Ben Habib, Rafe Hale-Mankou, I wouldn't judge them as any less British than you or I. Yeah.
Well, certainly not. No, absolutely
not.
By the way, there's a lot of Muslims. There's a lot of Muslims who are very, if you like, completely steeped in our culture as well. I mean, the idea that they all go up north and move into these towns and create their own Muslim communities. I mean, lots of them do, but not all of them. Loads of them are as British as you and I.
Absolutely. I mean, 100% correct. However, as I say, when you talk about the British becoming white British becoming a minority and potentially as low as, a third of the country in 100 years, that is a real problem, because the issue that will arise, Kev, and this will always happen, this will happen in any country that this happens to, that you do this experiment to, and that is, as that population of the indigenous culture actually dwindles, the people that constantly are coming in and the generations that are constantly coming out, as you will see yourself, there are many people, unfortunately, in this country who don't want British culture, who just
don't want it. Yeah, I mean, they're sort of enemies of British culture, and they want to impose their culture on us. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we are, like it or not, we're involved in some kind of process here, and the question is should we try to stop it? I suspect that we should, but in the end, as you point out, Mark, it isn't about it's not about the colour of your skin. It's about being born here and being British. And growing up steeped in British culture. And the fewer people we have like that, the more we're going to become unrecognisable as a country. Already, a lot of people think we're pretty unrecognisable compared to what we used to be. So I think we've got a huge problem here. Mark, good to talk to you as always. Mark in Lincolnshire. Let's go to break.
We're 5 MPs, and guess what? We're polling in the lead, about 15% ahead of the Tories. So with the greatest of respect to Mr. Francois, he's become a minor party. That is the reality, and they are disappearing down a plug hole, and people are polling and voting for reform, and I think we'll do so in significant numbers in the future, because we've got common sense policies and we just tell it as it is. So
I have never seen you so stroppy.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Petri Hoskin will be in the studio in just a little while to tell you what she's got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. Still time for a quick call and also a final WhatsApp voice note. And this one's from Fran, and it's on the important issue, that baby bump. Is it a strap-on? Meghan, did she strap that thing on? I say yes. Let's see what Fran thinks.
Hi, I just wanted to say that watching Meghan and Harry on that video and thinking about my own childbirth, there is no way I could have put on a dance like that just before I had my babies. That's all.
That is another good point from Fran. It's not an area that I'm expert on, obviously. But, you know, if she is genuinely pregnant here, she's very, very pregnant. And there she is writhing around, twerking. I don't think so. I believe that she's got a track record with this. There's been photos of her before where it's been suggested that she puts a strap-on baby bump, that is. Say strap-on. Strap-on baby bump, that's what I'm talking about. I think that is a strap-on baby bump. Right, let's take a final call. This is Neil in Wales. Hi, Neil.
Hiya, mate. You all right?
Yeah, I'm good. You want to talk about net zero?
Yeah. All I wanted to say was this. Reform have been taking drubbing after drubbing after drubbing for not having any publicly available policies.
Yeah.
About 2 weeks ago, I'm not sure if it was Nigel Zia or Richard, talking about scrapping net zero and putting in small modular nuclear reactors, like James Price said earlier on.
Yep.
Right, fast forward 2 weeks, and we're in World War III, apparently.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too worked up about that. That seems to be the Labour Party's or this government's latest narrative. Look out, we're all going to die. We're all going to die and we're going to save you. Look at all this defence spending. We are looking at it, Keir, and there isn't any.
Exactly. I've not seen any B-52s coming across yet.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much.
But yeah, roll on 2 weeks, and we're at World War III. We've got our Lord and Master Sir Keir Starling telling us he needs to scrap net zero and go with, guess what? The small modular nuclear reactors.
Well, that's what I mean. You know, you got a problem with that?
No, absolutely not. But I tell you what, this is why Reform are not giving away any of their bloody policies.
Well, they've got some.
The guy's got no clue, has he?
Who?
He's nicking at Keir Starmer.
Oh, Keir Starmer, yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, I mean, the net zero claptrap Labour, it's killing them, it's dragging them down, and the Tories seem to want to sink and drown with them, so we wish them a fond farewell and a happy death. Seems to be what's going on. Neil, thank you very much, good call. Neil in Wales there. And she's in the studio, it's Petri Hoskin. You seen that, the twerking video of Meghan?
Yeah, don't you twerk?
Well,
In the
that
kitchen.
isn't the issue.
All right.
That's not a real baby bump. It's strapped on.
Do you reckon?
Yeah, definitely, 100%.
Ah.
It's been a big talking point of my show.
Big talking
It
point.
has. It's like I started the show with it, and I said, right, is that a real baby bump? Because we deal with the important issues on this programme.
The big issues.
The big issues. The big baby bump issues.
The big baby bump
What
issues.
big issues will you be dealing with, Petri?
I don't know if you've noticed recently about how many British people seem to be being arrested abroad for drug smuggling.
Yeah, blimey, I'm really glad you... I'm going to be honest with you. I'm so bored about reading about this bimbo got caught in jail, bimbo got caught in Thailand.
It's up 53% year on year.
And every time it's like, oh, a strange man gave it to me. I had no idea. Yeah, right.
There's 3 Brits at the moment.
But it is on the rise.
It's on the massively on the rise. So we're going to be talking